Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of It's No Secret with Dr. T. With me today is a super cool dude by the name of Larry Roberts. He is a best-selling author. He's also a fellow podcaster. He has a business called Readily Random Media. He likes to talk, which you will find out very easily, and he's a bit of a bloody comedian, so I found out. So, Larry, good morning. How are you doing?
Would you call me an awesome dude? Is that what it was, or
a bloody funny
cool
comedian? A cool dude.
A bloody funny. Well, yeah, cool dude. See, that's something I don't get called very often, so I wanted to hear it again because cool is kind of the opposite of how I've been perceived my entire life. But now that I've gotten into podcasting quite a bit over the past few years, I think I'm a little cooler.
I personally think you're cool because you were born in the same town as one of your presidents.
Yes, Dwight David Eisenhower.
Yeah. And look what you've both done.
I know. He became president and I became podcaster. They both start with P. I mean, I think it's perfect, right?
But did he write a book?
Not to my knowledge. So I'm one up on him there. So, but yeah, his house is so tiny, man, where they had, where he was born. He wasn't born in a hospital. He was born in a house because oftentimes back then they had midwives that would come in and assist with the birthing process. And it's just a tiny little, it's a 2-story house, which is kind of interesting, but it's just tiny. There's really no size to it. And they have it as a national monument, and you can go and you can tour the house.
Yeah.
But they won't let you go upstairs where he was born. And maybe it's just blocked off, or they wouldn't tell us why. They just go, no, we can't go upstairs.
But there's a lot of places like that, though, when you'll go and have a look at historic sites where famous politicians and explorers and that were brought up. Houses were so much more modest in those days.
Yeah.
A house was there to sleep in, eat food, and maybe had a room for entertainment. It wasn't like we have today where they don't really think, well, I reckon if they had surround sound, I'm sure, yeah, they would have had surround sound rooms, but they didn't need that. Everything was based around the fireplace and talking.
Yeah, and that's exactly how this was. There was like one room when you walked in, there was like a main room, maybe a formal living room type scenario, a kitchen off to the side, and then a flight of stairs. So needless to say that when I went, I don't know, I was probably 12-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood as far as age goes.
Yeah.
I was less than impressed. I was like, I live in a trailer and it's cooler than this place. So I don't know. I was a little disappointed.
When was he president? I know he's the 34th president.
Yeah, he was president a while back. I honestly don't know. I'm such a horrible American. I voted though. So, today's our midterms. So I voted. I'm not going to get into who or why or what, but I voted. That's all I'm going to say. And I exercised that right, but I'm not really up to date on my American history. I'm so sorry.
I saw on Facebook exactly who you voted for. You voted for re-elect Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Yes, Roscoe P. Coltrane
from Hazard County for sheriff.
Yes,
yes. I saw that on Facebook.
Did you guys get to enjoy what is the greatness of the Dukes of Hazzard in Australia? Did that ever make it over there?
Oh, we loved it. Yeah, everyone loved the Dukes of Hazzard. Yeah,
of course. I mean, you got Daisy, you got Roscoe, you got Enos,
Boss Hog,
Boss Hog, of course. And I had the pleasure at a car show of meeting Roscoe P. Coltrane and Enos, the deputy, which was he came in, I guess, later on in the lame seasons right before it probably went off. But
yeah.
He did. It was fun. I got to take about the same age, 12, 13, 14 years old, something like that. I met them and my hero, Batman, Adam West. Met him there on
the real Batman.
It was an epic day.
That would have been. I saw a video on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and I think you commented on it. And it was Batman was getting dunked into the ocean, and this shark had hold of his leg.
Oh yeah.
And I put on the Academy Award goes for Best Rubber Shark to Batman. That was just
that was from the Batman, the first ever Batman movie, the 1966 Batman movie, and that's the action sequence that kind of starts everything for the movie that day. They go out and Batman gets that, and Robin has to pass him the anti-bat shark repellent type stuff down the ladder, and it's a nail biting scene.
But I suppose now when you look at that and so we've moved ahead. So our intelligence has moved ahead on what we like to watch.
Oh, 100%.
So,
I mean, even me, I loved those as a kid, but I can't watch them anymore. I have the movie and I have it in a variety of different formats, but it's more of just from a collector's perspective. It's not, I don't sit around and wait for the wife to go to bed and then pop in Batman from 1966. You know.
Yeah, it's true. So let's get on to who Larry Roberts is and what Larry Roberts has done. Well, we're talking about my show's a small business show aimed at small business people.
Right.
A lot of people in the health industry listen to it as well. And there was something that I read in, I'm not sure if it was your bio or where I saw this, but I did do a little bit of stalking. But I love that there was a comment that you said you always use comedy to get your point across.
Yeah.
And I know that your job during the day, you said that you're a Business Intelligence Analyst, which sounds really like you're almost like CIA.
Yeah, it sounds important. It sounds very important.
It does. But you said when you break it down, it means you write reports.
Well, I mean, I'm selling myself short there a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been there 20 years, and
okay.
so I started off with this company as a corporate trainer, which is really where my strength lies, getting in front of people and facilitating anything from soft skills to entry-level technical skills based on the individuals that come to work there at our facility. It's a distribution center, so a lot of the turnover isn't with let me see, how do I say this? Diplomaed employees, not necessarily diplomas, but what do you call it from university?
A degree.
Degree, thank you. Yeah, I ain't got one of them. So, but so we don't have a lot of degree turnover there. So a lot of the instruction was very entry level type stuff. So that went on for quite a while, and it worked out really well. But certain things, everything changes, everything evolves over time, and I eventually ended up in the IT department doing some training there for some more advanced technical skills, and it just evolved over and over and over. And here I am today in a business intelligence role. And I said it's reporting, but it's high level reporting. It's not just like I was breaking it down. Here's our fulfillment rates from yesterday. It's analytics. It's literally analytics. I'm looking for trends in numbers and looking for ways that we can take the data that we're producing and make informed and intelligent business decisions from day to day. So it's not like we're flying blind and we're just looking at historical data. We're taking that historical data, we're manipulating it, and we're looking at it for future references as well.
Okay, so when you're, and I think this is really important for people that are in small business, that there's certain information. Is there ever any how can I explain this? Is there any information that you gather, you sort of go, well, that is time wasting, and there's other information you gather and you go, that is critical data that every business should be looking at?
Yeah, but we try to make that analysis before you actually spend time really doing a deep dive into the pointless data. But a lot of times you find out that you don't even know that the data is pointless or valuable until you take that initial step and go, okay, is this something, if I look at why this forklift is taking X amount of time from here to here, could we somehow maybe reroute this forklift and make it cut that time in half? So that type of information can be valuable, but you don't even know that it's valuable until you discover it. So you have to go through that process of discovery. And for your show and your listeners, they have to go through that same level of discovery. Of course, they're not going to do, if they have a small business or even some mid-sized businesses, don't really capture the data that would allow them to do a deep dive into how the data impacts or how their day-to-day activities impact their overall data. But I can't stress enough how if you can find a way to capture the data that represents what you do every day, you could find room for improvement.
I think every business, I don't think there'd be a business around that could not find areas that they could improve on, whether it's efficiency in one area, just speeding up time, or it's just bottlenecks. What a lot of businesses have a lot of bottlenecks that slow the processes down. And usually when I'm doing, if I'm doing coaching with a client, and I'll ask them, what are the things that patients, clients, or customers are always turning and telling you, this annoys me? Find out what annoys them, and you'll probably find if one person tells you it's annoying, there's probably a lot more who are keeping it to themselves and try and eliminate them. And it's through processes that you can actually do that, or analyzing the process.
Yeah, and there's no better way to analyze a process than to talk to the individual that the process impacts the most.
Yeah.
You, as the podiatrist, may not see that the the initial stages of looking at someone's foot necessarily has an issue, but you may be looking at the top of the foot when the issue's in the Achilles, or they may have what's that, plantar fasciitis? How you like
well
that?
done. You almost got that right.
You almost got that right. It was an American accent, Tyson.
No, it was just said just slightly wrong. Say it again.
Plantar fasciitis?
I don't even. That was good. That was fine. Plantar. Yeah. Plantar fasciitis. Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Well, I know I suffered from it for a while, so I'm familiar with it. That's the only reason I had that one down or even attempted it. But I know the treatment really, really sucked. Yeah. And you take that needle.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that to someone I hate.
Oh, my God. They'd stick that in there all the way across your heel and drag it back across and shoot that cortisone in there. I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. But it felt so good after it was over. Yeah, it's sort of.
I used to get a cortisone cortisone injection in my shoulder every year.
Yeah.
When I was playing football, and still did up until a few years ago. Not play football, just get the cortisone injection.
Right.
Just for clarity. Yeah, just for clarity. Had to stop at some stage. Didn't really hurt my shoulder, but I've seen big football players, 250-pound, no neck, look like gorillas that have been shaved, and with tears streaming down their face, getting this cortisone injection in the heel. And to me, that was like last resort. That'd be the last thing I would.
Really? That was the first thing this doctor did to me, and I've had it done twice.
No, it'd be the last thing that I'd be doing.
Wow, because I remember he would take this canister of cold air. He'd go, all right, hold on, because that's the only numbing agent they would use is some cold compressed air.
Yeah.
And he'd spray the injection site, and then in it would go. And, I would just hold onto the chair and act like I'm tough.
It'd be like spraying your testicles and then punching yourself in the balls. It would just.
I wasn't going to take it there for the business show, but. Yeah.
But it would be exactly the same result. Yeah, it might numb them on the outside, but you're still gonna scream a little.
Yeah, that's not a good time. Not a good time at all.
So getting back to so you obviously have a serious job that you need to have an analytical mind to do all that. Did comedy side the comedy side of you, did that come about to balance it off, or were you always a funny guy and like analytical stuff at the same time?
I want to say I've always been geared more towards the funny. And as I evolved and as I became accustomed to a certain lifestyle, I had to become more analytical to match those requirements. I've never traveled down the path of entrepreneurship until it was 2007-ish. I had a business, but it had gotten to the point I had a pool business, a swimming pool company.
Okay.
And I was just a maintenance company where I would do repairs and we would service your pool once a month or once a week for the month, whatever it may be. And it was going really, really well. I was selling a lot of signups, and we had a lot of houses that we were servicing, several hotels that we were servicing. But I was, as many wannabe entrepreneurs do, you had to work that full-time job, then get off that full-time job and go over here and chase this entrepreneurial tendency. And I had adjusted my work hours so that I would get off at 3 in the afternoon and I would leave at 3 and then drive all over the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex servicing pools. And it eventually got to a point where it was so big that I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And I hired someone, but letting go of the reins of your business or your dream is very difficult to do. So of course, they never lived up to what my expectations were, and I ended up going through a few people. Anyway, the bottom line is it got to a point where it was so big I either had to quit and take that financial hit while I continued to build the business or sell the business. And to this day, I regret going with option B.
You sold the business
I sold the business, and I regret that all the time.
What was the mindset when it came up to making that decision? Because I'm sure there'd be a lot of people who have been in that boat before. They've got a full-time job. They're starting something on the side. I know a few people that are probably in that boat right now, where they've got one business already, and all of a sudden they start a second business, which is something that they're really passionate in, and it's actually starting to take off. But the business they've had, which is almost like their job, which they've had for 20 years, and this has been paying the bills. What was your mindset between going from one to the other? Did you do a list of fors and against for each one? Was there a process you went through to make that decision?
I'm sure I did at the time, but also at the time, I wasn't quite as financially liquid as I would have liked to have been faced with that position. So it was, do I keep paying the bills? I didn't own a house then. I own a home now. I lived in a townhouse then. And of course, I was what I like to call a $30,000 millionaire.
Yeah.
So I was, basically living like a millionaire on a $30,000 salary, not literally, but quite comparably. And the wife and I, we talked about it, and it really just didn't present itself as an option to keep the business. No matter how much I wanted to keep the business, it just did not present itself as a viable option. So I eventually had to just swallow my pride, take the money from selling the business and put that in savings and enjoy the fruits of my labor from that perspective.
Okay, that makes sense. And your wife was supportive of either decision that you made? She wasn't saying, "Oh, no, I don't like this."
No. That's why I say the option really wasn't there to even really entertain keeping the business too much, because the wife really wasn't supportive of me jumping ship from a guaranteed. It's a career. I didn't have a job. I've got a career even then. And she wasn't comfortable with the risk that came with leaving that career and pursuing swimming pools of all things. So, prior to starting the business, I didn't know squat about swimming pools. A buddy of mine, he started a building company where he built swimming pools. So we thought a perfect complement would be for me to service and repair swimming pools. And he and I worked in tandem, and it worked out great. She's like, "You don't even know anything about pools." So by the time I sold it, I did. But again, it really wasn't an option, and I'm disappointed in the fact that it wasn't an option. But I'm here today, and now I've got my podcasting, and I've got Readily Random Media that's doing its thing. And the goal, once again, is to walk away from the career and pursue podcasting, training, speaking, authoring, those sorts of things. So
no, there's a couple of really good points to take away from that. One is, even when you got into doing the maintenance side of things, you really didn't know what you were doing, but you did not let that stop you actually at least giving it a go while you kept your day job. Once it built up, but I can totally understand from your wife's point of view too, that I think why women are more sensible than men. Like, we're one of those things that, we're going to go and do this. If it all goes to shit, it's fine, because we can probably just turn it around and I can do it again, because we like going and hunting things and all that. So I think sometimes having a sensible woman in your life, and my wife is exactly the same. When I sold my podiatry business, the last one, and got offered really good money for it. And I sat down with my wife and said, "This is what we're being offered. This is like life-changing. Do we take this?" But we also had the business that made really good money and gave us a fantastic lifestyle. And we sat down, we talked about it a lot. And my wife said to me, "If you didn't have something else that you were already doing and had in the pipeline," because I was already doing coaching, writing books, speaking, she said, "I know that you're already making money from that area. So I know that if we do sell the business, you can then work more on what you really love doing, and you're already making money from it." So the decision went the other way. We still sold the business, but it wasn't like it was a change of career for me, something different.
No, and that's great. And see, what I did there is I actually sort of laid out the blueprint for failure.
Yeah.
I said, this is the way you start a business. Here's how you run a business. And I think I ran the business just fine. It was growing exponentially year over year. It was doing great. But I didn't have an exit strategy from either position, whether it was from the pool business or from the career. It was, I'm making this money. I'm going to get me a nicer truck. I'm going to get me this. I got to have this piece of equipment for the business. I got to have this computer. I always found something that I had to have.
Yeah.
And I was loving the money more so than the business. And that is a huge, huge mistake and a recipe for disaster every time.
That is a brilliant point. It's easy to do too, to enjoy the money coming in, spend it because it's coming in, thinking it's always going to be there the next day or the next month, and that's not always the case.
Right.
And sometimes if you're not preparing for the future too, there's a saying, what is it, when your emotions are high, your intelligence is low. And I think that happens in business a lot, when you can be living the good life for a while and then you have 2 or 3 bad months and all of a sudden the pressure's on, shit hits the fan, you're like, "Grr." You start making stupid decisions, which can sometimes make the business even worse, and your life and marriage and relationship with your children. I think that, in retrospect, you look back now and you go, wow, I wish I had kept the business. Do you think you would have learned it? Yeah. Do you think it could have been a disastrous path if you had kept it?
It's so hard to say. Do I think I would have pursued it aggressively? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I think I would have made it a success? Yes. But regardless of my thoughts in the matter, was what I was doing a recipe for disaster regardless? Because again, I was enjoying the money and I was enjoying the fruits of the labor more so than the labor. And we hear now so often that if you don't enjoy the grind, you're not ever going to move past a certain point. You have to love what you're doing, and the rest of it falls into place. If you love what you're doing, you're going to do it passionately, and you're going to do it in a manner that you're going to have a plan, because you're either going to crush it, which is hopefully what we all do, or you're going to fall flat on your face. I mean, I could love ballet, but the chances of me becoming a successful ballet dancer are pretty remote right now.
Yeah, probably you and I are on par with that. I'm not as flexible as I used to be. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, me neither.
If I work on the flexibility, maybe I could. But I like what you said there about having the passion as well, because to me, I reckon the easiest way to know if you're passionate about what you do and if you love what you do is you're always on a daily or weekly basis constantly looking for improvement in what it is that you do. So exactly. I know you and we both love podcasting. That's no question there whatsoever. So every week I'm always looking and tweaking things and trying something new because I want to get better at podcasting, or I want to get better at audio as a medium.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, if you go back and you listen to episode 1 of this podcast, of my podcast, I forgot we're on your podcast. I'm so sorry. Not used to being a guest. I'm working on that too. So, but if you go back and you listen to the first episode of my podcast, it's horrible. I wish I could take it down, but I have to leave it up as an example of the progression of the art and the progression of the passion. And you'll hear now that I sound totally different. And honestly, if you go back 10 episodes, I probably sound different there too. If you go back, I'm in the 70s now, so go back to the 20s or 30s or whatever it may be, you're going to hear a different tone.
Yeah.
Because as I progress, my tone changes. And as my level of expertise increases, my presentation skills increase proportionately. So it's that way with everything that you do that you have a passion for. But if you don't enjoy that, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
No, I agree. And I think, let's just mention your podcast is the Readily Random podcast.
Yes, please.
And we've just done that. And
sorry.
And the basis of your show is it's pretty random. You get a lot of guests from. I was listening to an Australian guy. Is it Steve Bronson?
Steve Bossman. Yeah,
Steve Bossman. Yeah, I was listening the other. Got about halfway through it, and I was at the gym, and he was your first Australian that you had on your show.
Yes.
And I think I'll be number 2.
You will be the second.
Damn it.
So
came second.
That's the only. Yeah.
Damn it.
Once again.
Second life. Again. It's a story of my life.
I did learn from Steve though what a prawn is, because
I did. I heard that. Yeah, not a shrimp.
Like, should I say something cheesy about the shrimp on the Barbie? And Steve's like,
it was. But I like it. Yeah, second. I always say that my book that I wrote, It's No Secret with. It's No Secret with Dr. T. That's the show. It's no secret there's money in small business. I always say it's the second best business book ever written.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
And everyone goes,
what's the first?
I haven't written it yet.
I gotcha. Okay, there you go. Yes.
Or there might be one out there. I just haven't found it.
Yeah, I took the bait, man.
I know everybody always says that question. So let's get back to you. You wrote a book. You wrote a podcasting book. 1 + 1 = podcast. And
I did.
I read it. And
you did read it?
Yeah, I love your writing style. You write exactly how you speak.
Exactly. That's the goal. I'm not a writer. I joined a mastermind to write a book. It was a goal of mine to write a book before I checked out of this life, and I managed to do it. It was a 30-day challenge to write a book in 30 days and publish it and become a best-selling author on Amazon.
Was that a lure?
To be honest with you, I'm sorry. It was with Laura. Yes.
Yes, I know
Yes.
Laura. Yes.
Yeah, Laura Peterson.
Laura
Of course,
Peterson.
gotta
We'll
give her a shout out.
give her a
She's
shout out.
awesome.
Laura Peterson. Copy that pops.
Copy that pops, and she's also a coach as far as authorship goes. She'll take you on as a client, and she will help push you through and teach you all about writing a book and publishing it on Amazon, and also becoming a #1 bestseller. So Laura is awesome. I love her. But she will help me through the book. You'll see it's there on the wall behind me. 1+1 = podcast. I also, obviously have a copy as well. And you're right. I wrote it exactly as I speak, and that was the goal. I wanted somebody to read this and feel like we're having a conversation. Now, is it the be-all, end-all to podcasting books? No, but it wasn't designed to be either. The title, 1+1 = podcast, that says, hey, I'm just here to show you that you can take one, and you can have some fun with it, and you can be off the ground and podcasting in no time. And it doesn't take a massive investment like I spent trying to get into this wonderful.
My hands up as well. The amount of money I spent to learn about podcasting was criminal.
Yes.
I just got sucked in unknowingly, eyes wide open, that I wanted to get into recording and all that, not realizing that the equipment that you need is a couple $100, if that. And the training isn't overly expensive either. It can be I do think, I honestly believe having somebody to teach you how to do it is so much faster than trying to learn it yourself.
I agree 100%.
But you don't need to be spending $5,000, $10,000, $12,000 to learn how to do podcasting.
I've spent so much money. My wife, she quit asking how much I spent, and she really quit. Actually, I was cleaning out the closet the other day in my studio, and I came across equipment that I've bought that's still in the box. I didn't even unbox it because
you're worse than me. At least I take it out of the box and put it on the shelf.
No, I've got a Scarlett, a 2i2 sitting right there, brand new in the box. If anybody wants it, I'm selling it today for $19.95. No, I'm kidding. But I think they're $99 new.
But I think it's a really good point. Like, we're both talking about podcasting here and what we spent money on.
Right.
But I think no matter what your career is, if you want to get better at it, I honestly believe having a business coach or mentor who's just a few steps ahead of you is all you really need. Spend some money with them to actually help you just go through the process. You're going to save a lot of money buying the wrong pieces of equipment, and you're going to save a lot of time from sometimes doing the wrong courses. Just picking, you can spend so much in the wrong areas. But one thing I wanted to, because Laura actually, I wrote down something that she actually said, and this was about writing the books. Share what you know and just pick a topic and write a book that gives value to someone who is a couple of steps behind you. And that's what you've definitely done with your podcasting book.
Right. And again, that's why I didn't try to be just the top dog when it comes to podcasting. I definitely do not have all those answers, but I think I provided value to individuals that are just getting started with podcasting. And I think too, I took some perspectives in the book that you don't hear all that often.
Yeah.
Like every business can use a podcast. I don't care what the business is. It can use a podcast.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, well, we're on the same page there. And, I take it to as far as I like to use Larry the Landscaper because I'm not very original. And since my name's Larry, I use my own name. But if you've got a landscape company, you could be out there. Now, I don't recommend you mow and try to do a podcast.
Yeah.
But maybe you're out there and you're planting some perennials, or you're trimming a bush, or you're doing something. You're picking some weeds, and you take an opportunity to record a podcast that's 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes long about here's the perfect opportunity to plant X. You can plant these now, and these are going to blossom in 2 months.
Yeah.
And the realism in that, you're not going to have studio quality sound, but you're going to have a realistic sound that speaks to certain people. Your average everyday podcast listener probably is not going to listen to that podcast. But if you have a client that puts their faith in you to take care of their lawn, and they don't mind getting out there sometimes on the weekend and planting some flowers or something, they could very well benefit from that podcast, and it keeps you in their ear.
Yep. That's a good
You're up
example.
here. So if they do get in over their head, they go, who am I going to? Well, I'm going to call Larry the landscaper. I just listened to his podcast yesterday. The guy knows what he's talking about. Or they may refer you. There's so many opportunities there for you to take advantage of if you don't put on blinders or you don't get that tunnel vision of what podcasting is and how podcasting works. And we just don't hear enough of that. Too many people get caught up on going, oh, I got to be so far up on the charts and I gotta beat Joe Rogan. And you're never going to beat Joe Rogan.
No,
okay,
you can't beat Joe Rogan. No,
you're not going to beat Joe. You're not going to beat Serial. You're not going to beat Gimlet. You're not going to beat any of these top media brands that dump money into this platform and this medium. You're never going to beat them. So if you beat something, at least be realistic and shoot for a subcategory.
Yeah.
You know, that can be done. But again, really a podcast, it's a medium that you can tailor fit to your needs. And that's what makes it so awesome and so versatile. And just such a tremendous platform to help promote growth in your small to medium to even large size business.
Yeah, no, I know. I've been spruiking this message for like the past year that I did a talk last Thursday night for the Young Entrepreneurs Program. It was using audio to grow your business, make more money, and smash your opposition. That was the title of the talk.
Oh, I love it.
And it was like a 2-hour talk. I had to talk for about 2 hours, so it was fairly long. But I gave them a lot of detail as well, and then a lot of talking backwards and forth. And one of the questions was, can every business or individual benefit from having a podcast? And I said, yes, because not every podcast has to be like this. It's not all about having a number of microphones and a mixer and getting famous people from Texas on your show like yourself. It's not about that. It's a podcast is whatever you want a podcast to be. Like you said, it could be like I do a mini show, and it goes about anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes normally, and it's just thoughts that are going on in my head, or something that's happened that week, or when we were traveling. I did one in Vancouver. I recorded one when I was in Powell River after talking to the Chamber of Commerce, and they're some of my favourite episodes because they're my thoughts. So,
Right.
So whether it's Larry the Landscaper or Tyson the Tyler,
there you go. I love it.
but it's one of those things you can take any interest that you're in, and share that information, share that knowledge. Look, when you were talking about the landscape, I was thinking straight away that if a landscaper came here and he planted so many plants, and he's doing those plants all around the place, and then he started doing these 5-minute little talks on the plants that he's done, and you want to plant more of them, where am I going to get the best information? From Larry the Landscaper's podcast. And then when people talk to me, hey, who did your landscaping? Larry the Landscaper. Oh, and by the way, Larry has a podcast. You should go and check it out.
You can get to know him right here before you even call him. You can get to know Larry.
It's the cheapest advertising you will ever do, is having your own podcast.
And it provides credibility.
True.
A lot of people, I mean, you're still, even if you're not credible and you were to start a podcast, that podcast gives an air of credibility, even if it's not quite where it should be. You know what I mean?
It's true.
It's because you're out there. You're on iTunes. What? You can find my show on iTunes? What? You're on, and right then, if somebody can go and download your media, it provides a level of credibility. Now, I'm not saying that to recommend you go out and start recording about something you know absolutely nothing about.
Yes.
I don't recommend that at all, because that's going to bite you in the butt. But
and some people do that.
100%, 100%. And it's just like the courses you were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
So many people are making these courses that know nothing about what they're producing a course on. And people buy these, they buy into them, they hire them as coaches or whatever it may be. And these folks, they can't answer a single question.
Yeah.
Now, what Laura said is, if you write a book and you pick a topic, or you pick a topic and you write a book, I got them backwards there. But if you pick a topic and you write a book and you know just a little bit more than what your primary audience knows about that topic, then you're doing a great service. But you can't be as ignorant on a topic as your audience, because, you know, the blind leading the blind, and somehow you both end up in the ditch.
I was going to say, and I'll just say one other thing about your book, 1+1 = podcast. I've read a few podcasting books. It is the best podcasting book I've read so far.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me blush.
Yeah, so it may end up being the second best podcasting book because I'm actually thinking of writing one myself. But
Oh, I've already got revision 2 in the works. It's funny because I was honestly, I told the wife that today because I'm going to take this minute to plug a course that I'm working on. I don't have the course named or anything.
Yeah, no, plug away.
It's going to be a podcasting course that I'm going to put out on Udemy. It's going to launch after the first of the year. And it's going to be on podcasting. And I told the wife, I said, I want this Udemy course to be just as thorough and as on point as I could possibly get it. And there were certain holes that I had in the book that now when I look back, I go, man, I wish I would have covered this in more detail, or I wish I would have brought up this in the book.
Yeah.
So to hear you pay me that compliment is just, it's mind blowing. And I can't thank you enough for it. And it just makes me feel like I did a pretty decent job after all. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And, look for the second best podcasting course on Udemy come the first of the year.
No. And when it gets up and running, let us know. We'll plug it away on all the social media for you.
Will do. I appreciate that. Thank you.
There's, the plan is to write a book on, I'm not going to write a book on podcasting because I think your book covers all the basics. I'm just picking one particular area, which is in both my books that I've written so far. I have a section called the 6 pillars of marketing, and it's breaking marketing up into 6 areas. And because too many people just look at one way of marketing, it could be online marketing where there's many. I call it professional, non-professional, internal, external, verbal, and online. 6 pillars.
Okay.
And so I started writing a book already called The 6 Pillars of Marketing for Health Professionals, podiatrists, dentists, and all that. And after coming back from Podcast Movement in July, I went, wow, the 6 pillars of marketing apply to podcasters. So I've started putting that together, 6 pillars of marketing for podcasters, because it all applies. It's just applied slightly differently. And give you an example, I say a professional referrer in the health industry, if I was a podiatrist, could be a chiropractor, physiotherapist, osteopath, another doctor. In podcasting, a professional referrer are other podcasters.
Right.
They are your professional referrers. Like me, you being on my show, you're a podcaster. I'm promoting your show. I'm on your show, you're promoting my show. So that's your they're the bonds you've actually got to build. And I think every industry has professional referrers, and then all the other pillars go from there. So there was one thing I want to get back to, which I touched on right at the start before we wrap up. Use comedy to get your point across.
Yes.
What do you mean by that? And the thing is, I love comedy. I love having a bit of a laugh, and I think if I've ever gone somewhere and laughed, for some reason, I actually remember the point more.
Oh, I think so, 100%. And that's one of the key points there. And I mentioned earlier, too, that I facilitate a lot, or I did facilitate a lot. I don't so much anymore, but I still speak some. And I don't write jokes per se, because I don't get up and hold a mic in front of an audience and just do comedy for X amount of time. I've done that, but it's not something that I pursued long term. But what I do like to do is I like to riff, or I like to improvisationalize any kind of conversation that I'm having with the audience. If someone asks a question, there's a good chance I'm going to make fun of them. But I'm going to make fun of them in a way that has everybody laughing with them,
yes,
and not at them. Or I may make a joke at my own expense. I make plenty of jokes at my own expense, but you can only tell so many fat jokes to one audience before they get tired.
Yeah.
You get like one. That's it, and then you're done. But it's reading an audience, it's learning how to read that audience and find out maybe who do I need to reach the most. And if I can get Tom back there in the back left corner on the last row, if I can make Tom laugh and get him involved, I own this entire room. And I can always make my point to this entire room if I can make my point to that guy that I can just feel the resistance coming from right there. So I always use comedy to break that ice. And again, it's not a written joke per se, because I think I'm pretty good at improv and whiffing it with an audience. I have some canned jokes, I'll tell you a funny story. It really wasn't funny. It embarrassed me, but it's funny now. We used to go to Walmart and shop every, I don't know, we'll say Friday, my wife and I.
That's where I got the shirt from. That's what I was telling you.
Oh, there you
That's
go.
where I got
Perfect.
this shirt was from Walmart.
So we're giving Walmart all kinds of plugs because we know they need them.
Yeah.
But we would go, and it didn't matter what cashier we went to. As soon as we got in line, it's like my whole persona changed, and the curtains opened and the show was on. And I had my same canned jokes that I would hit over and over and over with every cashier. And some of them I would use them a couple of times on, right?
Yeah.
So my wife just wasn't in the mood for it one night. And I was going through my regular performance. And eventually she just goes, Larry, close the curtains. The show is over. And she did this number emphatically. And she was very angry. And she was very tired of my jokes. So the lesson there is don't embarrass the wife.
That's a good point, yes.
Don't can your jokes. Especially when you can can your jokes if you're a real comedian, because then you kind of have to.
Yeah.
But as a speaker, as an author, as a host, having canned jokes comes off very canned. And I don't think that's very conversational. So that's what I try to avoid. But at the same time, you get somebody laughing, you got them.
And I know what you mean. You meet certain people and you know that you'll say something and they'll say a joke and you go, you must have been using that one 50 times before because it's really, really bad. No one laughs. Everyone just stops and looks and goes, yeah, okay. And there's certain people that don't have any timing with their comedy.
Right.
Someone will say something and it's almost like you've moved on to the next conversation and then they throw the joke in and you're looking and go, I thought we moved on from that.
Exactly.
Where did that joke come from? So, I think everybody has a friend who thinks they're funny and isn't, and then everybody has some friends who are funny who don't realize they're funny, and they're the ones that most people enjoy their company because they're not trying to be funny at all. They're just naturally witty with the conversations.
Right. And I'll tell you too, it's hard to find that level of comfort when you're doing a podcast. It's hard to find that level of conversationalism while I'm talking to someone with your credentials. For instance, I'm intimidated by your credentials. You're a doctor, a real doctor. And here I am. I'm just a data analyst guy, and I want to be a podcaster. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to rationalize that I'm talking to this guy that is so smart and it's just me? And you just can't get caught up in that. But it's so difficult to break those walls down just within yourself.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fight that as well when they're trying to do a podcast. They don't want to hear their voice. They don't want to hear themselves back. They don't want to hear themselves or pause for long periods of time when you can't remember the word degree instead of diploma. I didn't want to hear that, and hope you're going to edit that out, but if you don't, it is what it is.
I might repeat it. I might put that part on a loop. So I've got I have one last question for you.
Okay.
It's Monday morning. Someone bumps into you and they say, you're Larry Roberts. You're that cool dude that was on It's No Secret Dr. T. In fact, we thought you were better than Joe Rogan. And I'm about to go into work. It's Monday morning. What's the number one tip you would give me to start my week off the right way?
Remember meeting me. No, I'm kidding. Just remember, you met me. You go, oh, my life sucks, but I met Larry. No, what would be the number one tip? Wow.
Yeah, I didn't warn you. Usually I warn everybody, but I forgot.
Yeah, you didn't warn me, so I didn't have a chance to prepare a canned answer. The number one tip, man, is just remember that you control your happiness. And even if you're in a bad environment, you can control whether or not that environment pisses you off all day, every day, or you can choose to look at it differently and let it affect you in a different way. That's a lesson that I had to learn because I wanted, I mentioned the pool business. I wanted to jump ship a long time ago and be my own boss a long time ago. But now here it is. I'm 20 years in and, still not my own boss. So that would be my tip.
I think that's good advice. So, Larry, I want to thank you for being on It's No Secret with Dr. T. This has been a lot of fun. I've learned heaps, learned a little bit more about you. And I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you.
Oh, I had a blast. I really did. Thank you so much. I really can't thank you enough for having me on. I'm still blown away by the compliment on the book. I'll hold on to that forever. And again, thank you very much. It was an honor.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Larry Roberts. And I titled this show Using Comedy to Get Your Point Across because we laughed so many times during the podcast recording, some of which I had to edit out because we were laughing too much. But I think some of the times when we actually laughed were probably some of the best points. When he was explaining the story on the business that he had on the side to his day job, to his career, and then actually having to make that decision. Did he hang on to it or did he sell it? And in hindsight, he regrets that decision, but at the time, it was the right thing to do. And also when he was talking about having passion for what it is that you're doing. Because when you're passionate about what you do, you can't help but want to constantly improve and get better. And I think that's a really, really important point. And I love the example when he was talking about Larry, the landscaper, and why every business can benefit from podcasting, which I totally agree. And even if you don't want to be a podcast host, think about being a podcast guest. Because if you've got a message to share, get out there, let people know about your message through podcasting. And it will build your brand and build your profile. And the other benefit of podcasting is the people you meet through podcasting. It's like Larry Roberts. I met Larry through a mutual friend, Eric Hunley. Now, you might recognize that name. Eric is the host of the Unstructured podcast, which I have also been a guest on. And it was through Eric that I ended up meeting Larry. And I'm sure through Larry, I'm going to end up meeting other people. So that's it. If you thought about podcasting, just either become a guest, and if you want to have your own show, start digging into it. Look into it a little bit more. And if you've got any questions about it, please just send me an email, tf@tysonfranklin.com. Now, before I go, like I say, on a regular basis, if you're enjoying the show, please tell your friends, tell your family, tell your work colleagues. And if you happen to be on iTunes, I would love a rating and review. It would put a huge smile on my face. So that's it from me. Look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.